Sit down, Morrison. The cafeteria froze. Forks stopped midair. Laughter vanished. Her voice wasn't loud, but it had the weight of command. Sharp, calm, and final. The woman they thought was a clerk stood up slowly, shoulders straight, eyes steady. You just lectured a Navy SEAL about how to be one. Silence stretched. Jake Morrison blinked, color draining from his face. The air turned heavy, thick with confusion and shame. Lauriel Perez didn't move closer. She didn't need to. Stillness was her armor, shaped by years of endurance, not rank. Inside, she felt the familiar sting of recognition, not anger, not pride. Just the same quiet ache that came whenever someone underestimated her. You don't belong here. She'd heard that before, in training, in briefings, in locker rooms. Once a teammate had whispered, "She's only here for the diversity quota." She'd smiled then, just as she did now, and finished every drill they couldn't, but people forget, or maybe they never knew. "Ma'am, I didn't mean," Morrison stammered. Lauriel raised a hand, steady and cold. Intent doesn't erase ignorance. Awareness does. The room was silent. Even the air seemed to pause. Lauriel Perez, 31, administrative officer, Coronado Naval Base. To most, a woman behind a desk. To a few, a legend who once crawled through the mud of Yemen under fire and walked out alive. Now she was here, in exile disguised as duty. Filing reports. Sitting quietly while others explained leadership to her. Every day, someone mistook restraint for weakness. She looked at the four young men. They weren't enemies, just mirrors reflecting a system that taught arrogance before empathy. "This isn't about me," she said softly. "It's about what you failed to see." Her gaze swept across them. You assumed. You spoke. You didn't listen. A pause. That's how people die in the field. No one moved. No one breathed. Lauriel lifted her cup, the coffee trembling slightly in her hand. She took a slow sip, calm again. The battle was over before it began. Some lessons, she thought, don't need shouting. They only need silence, and someone strong enough to hold it. The cafeteria buzzed with noise and the smell of warm food. Lauriel sat alone near the back, her tray untouched, eyes fixed on a small, worn notebook. Pages smudged with saltwater stains, relics from another life she rarely spoke of. Laughter rippled as four young recruits entered, loud and confident. Jake Morrison led them, posture straight, grin easy. He spotted Lauriel and smirked. "Looks like admin staff eat better than us," he said. Carlos laughed weakly. Michael looked down. Tyler said nothing. Lauriel looked up, calm, unreadable. "You're welcome to join me," she said. Jake sat across from her. "Must be nice, ma'am. No mud, no drills, just paperwork and coffee." Lauriel smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised how heavy paperwork can get." He chuckled, missing the edge in her tone. Inside, she felt that familiar flicker, the quiet sting of being underestimated, the tone she'd heard her whole career. "She's not one of us." She let it pass, studying him instead. So young, so sure, so blind. Lauriel sipped her water, gaze steady. She knew his type, full of theories about courage, untouched by real fear. And as he laughed again, she thought quietly, he doesn't know it yet, but tonight he's going to learn what strength really means. Jake talked as if the world had been waiting to hear him. His voice carried across the table, bright, confident, unstoppable. "Hell Week," he said, leaning forward. "That's where the real ones are made. The cold, the exhaustion, the mental strain. It separates men from boys. That's what being a SEAL is about. You've got to be built for it. Mind, body, soul." Lauriel listened, unmoving. Her face gave nothing away. In her mind, she was back there. In the freezing surf, sand grinding into her skin, lungs burning with salt and pain. She could still hear it, the laughter of men watching her crawl through the mud. "She'll quit before dawn," someone had said. "She's not built for this." But she hadn't quit. She'd kept crawling until the tide washed the doubt off her skin. Jake kept going, unaware of the storm behind her calm eyes. "Most people break before the third day," he said proudly. "You need the right mindset, the kind of toughness you don't learn behind a desk. No offense, ma'am." Carlos and Michael exchanged uneasy glances. Tyler shifted, pretending to check his watch, but Jake didn't notice. Lauriel let the silence stretch for a heartbeat before answering. Her voice was soft, almost kind. "No offense taken," she said. Jake smiled, mistaking restraint for agreement. "It's just, paperwork can't teach you courage, you know. Real strength comes from pain, from pushing past limits." Lauriel tilted her head, eyes steady. "You sound very certain of that." He nodded, missing the irony completely. For a moment, the hum of the cafeteria filled the space between them. Then Lauriel's smile returned. Small, calm, unreadable. "Maybe you're right," she said quietly. "Maybe people like me will never understand what real strength means." Jake laughed, triumphant. The others stayed silent. Lauriel looked down at her closed notebook, fingertips resting on its cover. The corners were worn, the ink faded, proof of battles he'd never imagined. Inside, she felt neither anger nor pride, only patience. Let him talk, she thought. The loudest lessons always end in silence. Jake pushed back his chair and stood, chest out, voice booming over the hum of the cafeteria. "You know what I mean," he said, grinning wide. "Strength isn't theory, it's earned. I can do 100 push-ups in 2 minutes, 2-mile run under 12. Longest breath hold, 3 minutes, 20 seconds. He flexed his arms for effect, laughing as his friends exchanged uneasy glances. A few heads turned their way. Curiosity spread through the room like static. Lauriel stayed still, calm, watching. Jake turned slightly, soaking in the attention. "That's what separates the strong from the ones who just type reports," he added, flashing her a grin. The sound that followed wasn't loud, just a quiet command that cut through the air like a blade. "Sit down, Petty Officer Morrison." Her tone was measured, cold steel wrapped in calm. The laughter died. Forks stopped clinking. A ripple of silence spread through the cafeteria until all that remained was the low hum of the fluorescent lights. Jake froze. His mouth opened, then closed again. Something in her voice, not anger, but authority, made his pulse stumble. He sat before realizing he had obeyed. Lauriel's gaze didn't move. "Thank you," she said softly, almost polite. Somewhere near the serving line, a young lieutenant leaned toward his companion and whispered, "She's Perez, SEAL Team 5. The words hit like a shockwave. A dozen faces turned, recognition spread, whispers, half-breaths, the kind of awe that travels fast in places like this. Jake blinked, confusion tightening his jaw. The name meant nothing to him, but the reaction did. He glanced back at Lauriel. She was still seated, calm, steady, her hands folded neatly on the table as if nothing had happened. For the first time that evening, Jake didn't have a word to say. The air between them felt heavier now, no longer filled with noise or pride, but with the weight of something he didn't yet understand. Lauriel rose slowly, the hum of the cafeteria fading until only her voice remained. The fluorescent light caught the edge of her face, bronze skin, tired eyes, and a calm that carried weight. "You made 3 mistakes tonight," she said, her tone quiet but absolute. Jake didn't move. No one did. Lauriel's gaze locked on him. "First, you didn't observe. You missed how your own team was shrinking in their seats. Second, you confused confidence with arrogance, and that will break you faster than failure. Third," she paused, letting the silence tighten around them, "you assumed I knew nothing about SEAL training, because I'm a woman, and because of this." She raised a hand slightly, palm open, skin dark against the sterile white light. The room was motionless. Someone exhaled too loudly and stopped midway. Lauriel's voice softened, but it didn't lose its edge. "You looked at me and saw a clerk. You saw gender, not grit. You saw color, not experience." Jake's throat worked. "Ma'am, Don't," she interrupted, not harshly but with finality. "If you have to explain, you already know you were wrong." Every eye in the cafeteria was on her now. No one blinked. Then she said it, the sentence that cracked the air open. "You just lectured a Navy SEAL about what it takes to become one." Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Jake's face went pale. His lips parted, but no sound came. Carlos swallowed hard. Michael stared down at his tray. Tyler's hands clenched in his lap. Lauriel stood there, composed, her presence filling the room without a raised voice or a single step forward. It wasn't anger that silenced them. It was truth, the kind that strips every layer of pride until only respect remains. Lauriel's voice softened, though it carried through the stillness of the room. "I've heard it all before," she said. "She's just a quota hire. She's here because the Navy needs diversity." A faint smile crossed her lips, not bitter, but weary. "Once they took my name off the training roster. My scores were the highest, but they said they didn't want the trouble of a woman in the team." She let the words settle. The silence wasn't sympathy. It was realization. "I went back," she continued quietly. "I started from the beginning. Every drill, every test, every night in the freezing surf, I outlasted most of them, not to prove them wrong, but to prove to myself that strength doesn't have a gender." Her gaze found Jake's. There was no anger there, only clarity, the steady light of someone who had already fought this battle too many times. "You're not a bad man," she said gently. "You're just young, and you haven't learned yet that the moment you think you're better than someone else, you stop learning." Jake's shoulders slumped. The confidence that had filled his voice an hour ago was gone, replaced by the fragile silence of realization. Lauriel looked at him a moment longer, then nodded, a gesture of quiet mercy. "The ocean doesn't care what color you are or what gender you claim. It only cares whether you can keep swimming." Her words lingered like the echo of a tide pulling back, calm, certain, undeniable. Lauriel turned her attention to the 3 remaining recruits. Her tone shifted, still calm, but now edged with quiet disappointment. "You 3, she said softly. "You saw it happening, you felt it, and yet you said nothing." Carlos lowered his eyes. Michael's fingers twitched nervously against the table. Tyler looked as if he wanted to speak, but no words came. Lauriel's gaze moved between them. "On the battlefield, silence gets people killed. Out here in ordinary life, it kills something else: honor." Her words were measured, steady, but they cut deeper than anger could. "You don't need to be loud to be brave," she continued. "Sometimes courage means standing up quietly, saying enough when it's easier to stay quiet. Tonight wasn't about him, it was about all of you." They said nothing. Only the sound of her breathing filled the still air. "I want you to spend the next week observing," she said finally. "No speeches, no advice. Just watch, listen, learn." Her voice softened even further, almost like an older sister teaching, not scolding. "Real confidence doesn't come from proving how good you are. It comes from knowing how much you still have to learn." Carlos nodded first, shame and understanding in his eyes. Michael followed, lips pressed tight. Tyler swallowed hard, then gave a small, certain nod. For the first time that night, Lauriel smiled, just a faint curve of warmth. They understood now. Leadership wasn't the ability to command. It was the courage to listen, to see, to act when it mattered. And as the silence deepened, they realized they had learned more from her stillness than from all the words Jake had ever spoken. Lauriel closed her notebook and set it carefully on the table. The tension in the room was still heavy, thick as the air before a storm. "I won't put this in any report," she said evenly, her tone stripped of judgment. "But your reputation here, your real record, will be written by what you do from this moment on." The 4 young men sat motionless. None dared to look away. Lauriel turned toward the door, then stopped. She glanced back at Jake, her expression soft but unyielding. "People like me weren't born into respect," she said quietly. "We had to earn it, every single day. With every breath, every mistake, every time we got back up." Her eyes met his, not with anger, but with the weight of truth. "And you," she added, "should start learning that too, in your own way." She picked up her tray and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps were steady, deliberate, echoing through the silence she left behind. The door closed softly behind her. For a long time, no one moved. The cafeteria that had been loud an hour earlier was now filled only with the hum of the air conditioner and the sound of 4 hearts sinking under the weight of what they'd learned. Jake stared down at his untouched food. The others avoided his eyes. In that silence, admiration replaced embarrassment, and for the first time they understood that real strength wasn't in standing tallest. It was in knowing when to bow your head, listen, and begin again.